Merry Christmas to everybody. Let's not waste time. Let's get into the top 12 defense rankings. Just like the video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. That's all I ask for this Christmas from you guys. So getting into our first tier, we've got the Chargers defense at number 1. Now, if you watch the early defense rankings for Week 17 in advance for Week 16, I did have the Chargers defense at number 1 at the New England Patriots. I still think it's a really good matchup. Listen, the Patriots just put up 20-plus points against the Bills defense, and I think that the Bills defense is also a really good defense as well. The Chargers defense obviously just got kind of embarrassed by the Denver Broncos, and realistically their last several games have not been good. But again, it just goes to show with the Bills defense, they had an advantage last week because of the fact that they were playing an offense that was not putting up tons of points. Even with 21 points, that's not tons of points, and they also turn the ball over at least twice a game. So the Patriots offense still does that, right? They do not have playmakers to score many points, and they turn the ball over. Well, the thing about the Chargers is a common thread with them basically the whole year, except the last 3 games, is that they've been dragging their opponents to really low-scoring games. I see that becoming a reality again this week. I think the Chargers will be a really solid play. 42 sacks they'll get after Drake May, and 14 interceptions. They'll get at least another 1, possibly 2 in this game. I like the Chargers defense a lot. Number 2, I think that this tier needs to be exclusively closed off between these two teams. The Seahawks at number 2 at the Chicago Bears. So listen, with Seattle defense, they obviously have been more hot and cold this year than the Los Angeles Chargers have. The Los Angeles Chargers have definitely been way more consistent, but the Seahawks are so capable of a massive explosion type of week. And again, their last 3 games have not been good because they've played teams like the Cardinals, the Packers, the Vikings. Like those two of the last 3 matchups, those are really brutal. But they're taking on the Bears this week, man. And I've been saying this for weeks now. The Bears are ready for a vacation. They have been beaten and battered. They are so ready to go to the Bahamas. And I don't think that changed here against the Seattle Seahawks this week, who are also fighting for playoffs. The Seahawks are not out of the playoff hunt right now. They need to keep winning. I see them getting after Caleb Williams, probably getting at least 5 sacks on him, and really just holding them to very few points. Because again, I don't think the Bears offense is actually that good when a defense is actually trying to stop them from scoring. If you notice, the trend between the Bears is that really over their last several games, really for the majority of the year actually, the majority of their points are coming when defenses are already beating the crap out of them and their foot's off the gas. I think the Seahawks have a really good game against the Chicago Bears in the fantasy championship. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got the Chiefs defense at number 3, and they're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas Day. Now, listen here. Really, the reality with the Chiefs defense is I've been discussing them for a long time. They have not been the best fantasy defense this year because what they've lacked is the big plays necessary. Well, don't look now. The Chiefs are a top 13 defense in fantasy football. Their last 4 games, Las Vegas Raiders 6 points, Los Angeles Chargers 4, Cleveland Browns 21, and Houston 7. Like, their defense has gotten much better. They're also getting turnovers over that time. They've gotten about 8 turnovers within the past 4 games. This defense has been really freaking good, actually, at making things come together. Their defense just seems to be coming together at the right time. So now they take on the Steelers here, who have George Pickens, by the way. It was just reported that he is playing tomorrow. But my problem with that is I just don't think that I think we've seen the Steelers be exposed over the last 2 games. They played 2 really tough teams back-to-back, Philly and Baltimore, and their offense has gotten a little bit embarrassed. I think that the exposure campaign furthers this week with the Chiefs being a really good play. And at number 4, I've got the Colts defense at the New York Giants here. Listen, with the Colts defense, they've obviously had a big problem this year with consistency. Like, their defense doesn't get that many sacks. They have 34 sacks, but they do get a lot of turnovers. They get a lot of the splash plays that make them a good fantasy defense. Obviously, they weren't a fantastic play against the Tennessee Titans, but they're also, the Titans are better than the Giants. Like, that is the reality here, is that the Giants can't put up more than 14 points right now. Like, they have not done that basically over the last month and a half. So I just don't think that the Giants will be able to score many points. And the Giants also have atrocious offensive line, and they turn the ball over. So I don't see how the Colts are not a top 5 play this week. And at number 5, I've got the Rams defense versus the Arizona Cardinals here. Now listen, I do think that the Rams defense has been, I've kind of talked them up for the majority of the last 2 months or so. They're a top 12 defense right now, and that's because they're getting a lot of turnovers. 11 interceptions, 7 fumbles recovered. They've done really well with turnover differential this year. Now, the Rams defense over the last month, I would say they've had, again, boomer bust games. But this team, Arizona, I think is just, they've gone in the tubes. Like, Arizona has been on such a bad streak lately. If you look at the Cardinals and just how their offense and their team as a whole is functioning, they're already out of playoff contention. I just don't see much of a massive effort coming for the Cardinals this week. The Rams, on the other hand, they can get another step closer to clinching the division. So I do think that the Rams are in really good position here to close. They did really well against the Jets and the 49ers 2 weeks ago, and last week, I think that this streak continues and they become a really good closing team for your fantasy playoffs. On Christmas Day, we get a gift from Underdog because Patrick Mahomes' projection this week is 0.5 total yards. Obviously, it's set up in a way for you to basically win free money when you hit the higher on this one. So if you have not taken advantage of Underdog yet and you want to get in on this Christmas Day sweat-free pick for Pat Mahomes this week, go down in the comments below and grab the link that's there and use code FFN to sign up for Underdog. They will match your purchase deposit 50% up to $1,000 when you hit the higher on the sweat-free pick for Mahomes this week. Now, dropping out to our next tier, I've got the Raiders defense at number 6 at the New Orleans Saints. So listen, with the Raiders defense, I had them lower on the list last week. And if you did not watch it, I basically went through the fact that the Raiders defense has been on this list because they've been disgraceful. And I was really big on them to start the year. They've been disgraceful. This makes too much sense, man. I mean, the Saints, they literally are a Mickey Mouse club offensively. Like, they put up no points, and not even just no points against the Packers. They could barely get the ball past midfield. I mean, this offense is so embarrassingly bad. Spencer Rattler is so embarrassingly bad. And they have nothing. They have no playmakers, man. They have nothing. The Raiders defense also, low-key, has been pretty solid the past month. The Raiders defense, here's what they've done the past 4 games in fantasy. 6 points, 9 points, 9 points, 6 points. And 2 of those were against pretty good offenses. Kansas City and Tampa Bay. Like, they're actually playing pretty good football right now as far as defense goes. So I just think this one makes too much sense. I'm not going to let the emotions from earlier in the year get in the way of a really good championship play. The Dolphins defense at number 7 at the Cleveland Browns. They were not even close to being inside the top 12 last week when I did these rankings. Now, the difference between right now and what it was back then is just how bad the Browns offense was with DTR. And they're planning on starting him again. The Browns offense can't move the ball with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So already, you're not looking at more than like 10 to 13 points in, the actual NFL game against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins can come up with some turnovers every now and then. They can get after your quarterback a little bit. The Browns offense without Jameis Winston, They just aren't very good. Like, they can't move the ball. They can't score. There's no big playability. I don't see how the Dolphins are not a really good play this week. And the Eagles defense at number 8. They're taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, here's the problem with the Eagles defense. I want to get the bad out of the way early. The Cowboys have actually been pretty solid. Like, the last month and a half, Cowboys have played really good football. And that's with, like, backups and an injured CeeDee Lamb. Now, CeeDee's probably going to play this week. I don't see a reason to indicate he won't. But CeeDee Lamb is definitely very, very injured right now. And if they miss CeeDee Lamb, like, this offense probably will not move the ball much. Even in that Sunday night game versus the Bucs, whenever CeeDee was out, they weren't moving the ball very much. So all it takes is CeeDee Lamb to not play. And I'm not hoping for it. I'm just saying the Eagles defense, they're going to be looking to rebound after last week. Because that was an embarrassing performance they just put up against the Commanders. That was a really bad one. Now, they haven't been great in fantasy football. I've pointed that out. They actually did okay last week against the Commanders, though, and that's what brings me back to them, is that they actually played really well against the Commanders, who won and put up 30-plus points on them. So I just think that there's too many things going on here, too many things going right for this defense to not be a good play this week. And dropping down to our last tier, I've got the Bills defense versus the New York Jets at number 9. The Bills defense, I said it last week, guys. A lot of people did not agree with my Bills ranking last week. And listen, they weren't the best defense, but they were really good. And the Bills defense over the last 3 weeks, they've played 2 top 5, top 10 offenses. They got a break versus the New England Patriots, and now they get the New York Jets, who I don't think are the greatest matchup. Like, I do think the Jets can put up points, but I just read that Aaron Rodgers is playing through a knee injury. They looked lethargic offensively again against the Los Angeles Rams, and the Bills are looking to close and potentially get the number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs. So I do think that there's a lot on the line here for the Bills, and there's really not much on the line for the Jets. They looked lethargic. I do think that the Bills will end up taking advantage of them and getting after Aaron Rodgers and definitely making him throw an interception or two. And number 10, the Lions defense at the San Francisco 49ers. The Lions defense was also a pretty solid play this week. Again, not number one tier, and I think that's a big reason I moved them down this week, is because the Lions defense, they are missing so many pieces. And I knew that heading into last week. But the difference here this week is that they're playing the 49ers, who I think they've met their match. Like you want to talk about decimated? The 49ers are decimated too. So I think that they've met their match. So as far as I'm concerned, it's even Steven. The Lions are fighting for the number one seed. They're going to be a good play this week. They're going to get after Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has been playing really bad football lately. So I don't think that there's a question, in my mind at least, that they'll have at least one interception in this game. And probably a fumble or two. I think that the Lions are going to be a really solid play this week. And at number 11, I've got the Ravens defense at number 11 at the Houston Texans. Listen, the Ravens defense has been largely disappointing. We all know the story, yada, yada, yada. The Ravens are definitely not a very good defense in fantasy this year. Over the last two games, they put up some decent performances. 6 points against the Giants and 14 points against the Steelers. So they obviously get a touchdown, a pick six off the Steelers. The Houston Texans, now without Tank Dell and already without Stephon Diggs, they have very, very limited options. Joe Mixon has been able to he's been bottled up lately. So CJ Stroud has also been turnover prone. I think that the Texans offense is kind of falling apart, and the Ravens defense might be coming together over the last, 2 weeks or so. The last 2 weeks, 6 sacks combined for the Ravens defense. They've had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. So their defense might be gelling at the right time, and the Texans, they might be falling apart at the wrong time. I do think the Ravens end up being a solid play on Christmas Day. And at number 12, I've got the Cowboys defense in here at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys defense, dude, they've been good. The Cowboys defense is a top 12 defense right now in fantasy football. Their last 4 games, are you ready for this? Actually, let's go to their last 5. Week 12, they had 22 points, then 17, then 4, then 15, then 8. They've played some really potent offense too. Washington and Tampa Bay. Like that's really good for them to do what they're doing. Their defense is coming together. They've been basically getting like 5 sacks a game over that time, and they've been forcing at least 2 turnovers per game. So even if Hurts plays, like this is factoring in a Hurts led Eagles offense. I think that they could be a solid play. The Eagles offense definitely showed some cracks last week, and it's not that I think that the Cowboys defense will be able to bottle up Saquon Barkley or anything like that, but even if the Eagles put up 24, if they can get a couple turnovers and some sacks, they will end up being a solid play, and that's why they're inside my top 12 this week. So let me know how your lineup is coming together for week 17 of your fantasy season, and if you want to see the top 30 wide receivers this week, click on this video right here.